2531 Cast off. The PTV stopped near a private dock hidden from view by a small park. Sunny turned off the engine and glanced at his companions, feeling an odd mixture of excitement and fatigue. Truth be told, he was quite tired. Sunny did not quite remember when he slept the last time, and while this would not have been a problem in usual circumstances, he was a mundane person at the moment. His eyelids were heavy and his head felt like it was cast from lead, but at the same time, he was full of restless, frenetic energy. Ah, I miss being a demigod. Let's go. They exited the vehicle and descended to a wooden pier that extended a small distance into the restless waters of the Mirror Lake. There, a beautiful wooden sailboat waited for them, ready to set sail. Well, figuratively speaking, the wee affair was not conducive to raising sails, but the boat was outfitted with an electric motor as well. It was the other Mordred's luxury yacht, or rather, one of his luxurious yachts. Of course, a tall figure was waiting for them at the edge of the pier, hidden by the curtain of rain. With his long tattered coat, pale face, and emotionless expression, Mordred looked like Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. The lake stretched behind him, and far in the distance, the magnificent silhouette of the great castle rose from the surging waves like a mirage. Mordred looked at them silently. His eerie mirror-like eyes lingered for a few moments on his other incarnation, and then the empty cold void of his true self disappeared behind a pleasant smile. Well, this certainly brings back memories. Morgan, dear sister, we really should stop meeting like this. Still smiling, he looked back at the distant walls of the castle. Granted, slowly crushing your spirit in those ruins was quite an amusing pastime. Splendid to see you as well, Saint Athena, you are a sight for sore eyes, as always. It takes a really special person to stay alive after being maimed, mangled, and killed by me so many times. Allow me to extend my admiration. Effie looked at him for a few moments, then smiled. Oh, how about I extend my foot all the way up your ass, instead? Sunny winced. Her words were somewhat crude, but she wasn't wrong. Looking at Mordred darkly, he said, "Are you sure you want to make us angry at this point? Or do you think that I don't have another cursed abomination stashed somewhere to drop on your deranged head?" Sunny scoffed. "In fact, I have 5. 2 beasts, 2 devils, and a tyrant. So, mind your manners." Of course, he was talking about the cursed ones imprisoned in the death game and the terrifying dollhouse. Unleashing them upon the world was not something he would do, of course, but the Basta GD did not have to know that. Mordred's smile turned a little forced. Apologies. Please, come aboard, there is no time to waste. They followed him onto the yacht. Sunny noticed that Morgan's hands twitched a little when she was walking past Mordred. Luckily, she did not pull her black leather gloves off, so it seemed that they would be able to maintain peace at least for now. The other Mordred could not pull his eyes away from his mirror copy. There was a faint, foolish smile on his face, as if he had met someone precious after a long separation. Mordred himself, however, did not even look his way, acting like his other part did not even exist. Standing side by side, they were utterly the same. The clothes were different, and one was much more ragged than the other, but the similarity between them was so complete that it seemed odd. They looked more alike than identical twins. They were simply flawless copies of each other. Nevertheless, it was impossible to confuse them. Or so Sunny thought, until the 2 shards of Mordred disappeared into the cabin and returned wearing each other's clothes. The other Mordred, the pampered CEO of the Valor Group, was now wearing rags under a tattered raincoat. Mordred himself, meanwhile, was wearing a chic Viridian suit with tasteful golden accents. He had styled his hair and changed his posture, appearing less imposing and more subdued. Then, Mordred took a deep breath and plastered a faint, foolish smile on his face. Everything about him suddenly changed, as if he was reborn, his poise, his presence, his gaze. A few moments later, Sunny was not at all confident in his ability to differentiate between the 2 Mordreds. Face might be a problem. Mordred looked at him innocently and coughed. "So, Detective Sunless, should we cast off?" Sunny stared at him for a while, then nodded slowly. "Sure, let's do that." The boat was tied to the pier by a rope. Effie was the one who untied it and then jumped aboard, almost slipping on the wet deck. Sunny helped her regain balance and looked at the hazy silhouette of Mirage City, which was slowly drifting away. After remaining silent for a few moments, he sighed. "I feel like we won't be coming ashore after arriving at the castle. This place was fun, in its own way. I never thought I'd ever witness how people lived before the dark times, before the resource starvation, the wars, the natural disasters, and the nightmare spell. In a world of peace, prosperity, and promise. He hesitated, and they still managed to make a mess out of it. Well, I guess that's just human nature. What do you think? Effie looked back, too. She contemplated her answer for a while, and then smiled. This place has chocolate milk and donuts. I'm going to miss it. Sunny sighed. And cultivation dramas. Those are great, as well. Effie chuckled, then unholstered her revolver and opened the drum, sliding the rounds into it one after another. You know, she loaded the last round and snapped the revolver shut. If we defeat the Castellan and regain control of this component of Bastion, we might be able to fashion the Palace of Imagination into whatever we want. Effie looked at Sunny and grinned. We can even make that cultivation stuff you mentioned come true. Just imagine, you, me, Neffes, Cassie, Kai, and Jet taking a vacation here, building the most awesome of cultivation sects. Sunny rolled his eyes. I'm pretty sure that we'll find a more useful way of controlling the Palace of Imagination. He remained silent for a while, feeling the boat accelerating beneath them, and then added. But if we do build an awesome cultivation sect, it has to be located on a mountain. An awesome mountain covered in cherry blossoms. With caves and deep pools of natural chi. The sailboat cut across the lake, coming closer and closer to the towering castle. The beautiful, ruined heart of Mirage City. 2532 Mirage Castle Museum. Just like in True Bastion, the great castle of Mirage City stood atop a mountain that rose from the lake. It was both similar and different, immense, but not nearly as immense as the real one, seemingly built with human hands. The ancient fortress was in a state of disrepair, but there were signs of restoration works here and there, as well as scaffolds and heavy machinery. There were banners placed along the winding path leading to the great gates, as well. Mirage Castle Museum, grand opening soon. The level of water in the lake had risen, though, so the lower docks were entirely submerged. So was a long portion of the stone steps, as well as several construction machines that had not been moved higher up the slope of the mountain in time. There was still quite a way to go from the higher pier, though, and the gates were firmly shut. Sunny, Effie, and Saint hid behind the cabin of the yacht, while Morgan and the other Mordred retreated inside. Only the real Mordred remained on the deck, guiding the boat to a pontoon pier. There was movement on the walls of the castle as it approached, and Sunny noticed human figures keeping watch on the lake. Those were Maddox's henchmen, no doubt, each armed with firearms that were supposed to be illegal in Mirage City. Jumping to the pier and tying the yacht to it, Mordred whistled a carefree melody. He did, however, say quietly while his back was turned to the castle. What, exactly, am I supposed to accomplish here? Sunny responded a few moments later, his voice barely audible through the rustling of rain. Get Maddox to come meet you personally. If that does not work, at least make them open the gates. We'll take it from there. Mordred smiled. What will stop them from shooting me dead as soon as I show my face? Sunny shrugged. I don't know. Figure something out. If you do get shot in the face, though, they'll have to open the gate to retrieve your body. So that works, too. Mordred sighed. You know, Sunless, you are not a very nice person, are you? Sunny smiled nicely. Hey, at least I am a person. Finishing up with the knot, Mordred opened an expensive umbrella and walked up the stone steps. In less than a minute, powerful spotlights turned to illuminate his tall figure, and he raised a hand to shield his eyes from the light. Sunny shifted slightly and said evenly, addressing Effie and Saint. Get ready. Out there in front of them, a small distance up the slope, Mordred lowered the umbrella to reveal his face. He had donned the mask of his nicer twin again, so his expression was calm and good-natured. Uncle, are you there? The people on the wall were all looking at him, holding guns in their hands. Then, there was more movement, and a new figure revealed itself above the gates. How peculiar. Sunny had not seen Maddox since his death in the Battle of the Black Skull. Everything had happened so suddenly back then, and even Whispering Blade, one of the greatest champions of the Sword Domain, fell victim to the great horrors escaping the towering nightmare gates in the mayhem. The Sword Domain itself was gone now, so it was peculiar to see Maddox alive and well, even knowing that he was merely a reflection of the real Whispering Blade. Standing above the gates of the castle, wearing a fashionable business suit and a black coat, Maddox looked down at Mordred chillingly. His tie was held in place by a silver pin, and there was a black umbrella protecting him from the rain. He was not holding it himself, though. Instead, a serval minion was doing it for him. With his harsh features and a heavy gaze, Maddox looked the part. He was undeniably the villain of this story. Poor Whispering Blade. The real man had never betrayed his brother or his niece. But his reflection was as corrupt and treacherous as they came. Dear nephew, you are as gullible as ever. I've warned you numerous times to fix that naive personality of yours, haven't I? Although I guess it is too late now. He had to raise his voice to be heard, but even then, Sunny only caught bits and pieces of what Maddox said in his commanding, authoritative voice. He did hear what Mordred said in response, though. Oh, I am terribly sorry, uncle. I can't quite make out what you are saying. Why don't you come down so that we can discuss the issues having to do with Valor construction properly? Maddox sighed. The fact that you think that talking can resolve anything, at this point, just proves what I knew all along, that you are not fit to head the Valor group. Don't blame me, nephew. You brought this on yourself. Turning his head, he said something quietly to his people, and one of them raised his gun. Mordred flinched. Wait. When Maddox looked back, he smiled. Are you sure you want to shoot me, uncle? A bullet wound is not simple to cover up. Surely, drowning me in the lake would make things much easier for you. When they fish my body out of the water, the coroner will just conclude that I had an unfortunate boating accident. His logic was hard to deny, and it meant that Maddox's people would have to come down the wall and open the gate to capture him. Good. However, Maddox simply smiled darkly. Who says that there will be a body to find? What a fool you are. Goodbye, nephew. Kill him. Mordred's eyes widened. In the next moment, there was a deafening sound of a gunshot. And the henchman aiming at Mordred plummeted from the wall, leaving a trail of blood behind. Goddammit. Sunny found himself pressing his hands against his ringing ears. Beside him, Effie lowered her revolver with a satisfied expression. Wow, I was aiming for Maddox, but this works, too. It was indeed a good shot. But it had been so damn loud. What are you waiting for? Move. Up on the wall, Maddox had already disappeared from view. Mordred dove into the bushes beside the stone path. The henchmen were already opening fire on the yacht. Sunny gritted his teeth, and began moving. 2533 firefight. Splinters of wood exploded into the air as bullets hit the yacht. Sunny bent low and peeked from behind the cabin, raising his arm to take aim. The figures of Maddox's henchmen on the tall wall of the castle were barely visible behind the curtain of rain. The distance was substantial, as well, and they were in an elevated position to BOOT. Still, he was the Lord of Shadows. Someone who could hit a target with a javelin made of pure darkness from dozens of kilometers away. Surely, a trifling revolver. Bang. Oh. His bullet did hit someone, however, Sunny failed to make the next shot and dove back behind cover, cursing under his breath. The mechanism of the archaic firearm was exceedingly simple, and the double-action trigger was easy to pull without making the barrel wobble. However, the strange thing kicked like a mule. Sunny had never fired a gun before, let alone one from a distant past, so he did not expect the recoil to be so severe. Bang, bang, bang. Effie held her own gun firmly with both hands, crouching low. She seemed to have hit someone, as well, then hurriedly reeled to the side. A moment later, the roof of the cabin near her head exploded into splinters, making her wince. Damn, there's really an army of them out there. Sunny smiled crookedly as he wiped the drops of rain from his face. We have a secret weapon, though. We just need to get a little closer to deploy it. He glanced at Saint, who was pressing herself into the wall of the cabin near him with a deceptively indifferent expression on her exquisitely beautiful face. She was plugging her ears, though, seemingly unhappy due to the deafening noise of the firefight. At that moment, there was a bright flash, and a deafening thunderclap tore apart the sky. A blinding bolt of lightning connected the tallest tower of the castle to the dark veil of storm clouds ahead, and arcs of electricity danced on its spire for a few seconds. Cover me. Sunny leaned sideways and raised his revolver again. This time, he had learned his lesson and compensated for the recoil, firing the gun 4 times in rapid succession. The first 2 bullets hit the parapet of the battlements, but the third and the fourth found their mark, hitting a vague figure of a henchman in the chest and the shoulder. Sunny wanted to capitalize on his success by dashing to the bow of the yacht, but in the next moment, a deluge of bullets descended upon his position, forcing him to dive back into the cover. Hey, I told you to cover me. Effie wiped a bit of blood from a cut left on her cheek by a stray splitter and shrugged. What could I do? They started shooting the moment a tip of my ear showed from behind the cabin. And they know how to shoot, too. Sunny gritted his teeth. Damnation. Showered both by the torrential rain and by the splinters flying off the yacht, he crouched, pulled on a special lever, and opened the drum of his revolver. Sunny shook it a little, expecting the spent cartridges to fall out, but only one did. It rolled directly onto his thigh. Ah, damn, hot, hot. Sending the scalding cartridge flying with a hurried swipe, he huffed in annoyance and pushed on the ejection rod. The remaining shells, as well as one unused round, scattered on the deck, and Sunny pulled 6 more out of his pocket. Sliding them into the drum one after another, he grimaced. Seems like we are pinned down here pretty badly. Effie was reloading her gun, as well. Yeah, Sunny flinched when a bullet ricocheted from a mast and zipped past his head. And the gate is still closed. Effie glanced at him. True. Sunny frowned. And this boat is going to sink from all the holes those bastards are making in it before we make it to the shore. Effie made a face. Sounds about right. He sighed. I don't know about you, but I hate being thrown into water. It happens to me way too often. No, really, I've been thrown into water a weird amount of times. And I hated every single one. Effie smiled. So, partner, what are we going to do about it? Sunny grinned. Easy. Don't shoot the henchmen, shoot the spotlights. He prepared to follow his own advice. I'll take the ones on the right, you take the ones on the left. Ready. 1, 2, light them up. They dove out of cover at the same time, aiming their guns rapidly. Their shots rang almost simultaneously, and 2 of the spotlights installed on the wall of the castle exploded into a rain of glass shards and sparks. A moment later, 2 more were destroyed, plunging the approach to the castle into a dim darkness. This should be enough. Looking at the bottom of the wall, Sunny smiled darkly. I guess he is still alive, after all. Out there, under the guise of darkness, a figure in a stylish suit dashed from behind an abandoned construction machine toward the wall. As Sunny and Effie fired a few more shots in the direction of the henchmen, Mordred reached the ancient stones of the castle wall unseen and grabbed onto them, climbing with surprising agility. It looked both eerie and almost impossible, for a human to scale a wet, vertical wall with such ease. Nevertheless, in less than a minute, completely unnoticed, Mordred reached the battlements and slid over the parapet without making a sound. Get ready to move. A few seconds later, there was a lull in the rain of bullets pelting the yacht. Sunny dashed forward, followed by Effie and Saint. They could not see what was happening on the battlements above the gate from the stone steps, but could hear screams and sporadic gunshots. A body fell down, splattering on the stone plates and growing motionless. The henchmen further down the length of the wall were still aiming at them, though. Just a few seconds after Sunny, Effie, and Saint jumped ashore, the first bullet whistled past them. Faster. They made a mad dash up the steps, eventually finding cover behind a colossal construction machine just a few dozen meters away from the gate. By then, the henchmen had concentrated fire on them once again, making it almost impossible to move. But it did not matter anymore. Catching his breath, Sunny calmly reloaded his gun and glanced at Saint. A dark smile appeared on his face. Dr. Saint, if you will, it's time for your entrance. 2534 Enter Saint. With the spotlights gone, Mordred had been able to scale the wall and attack the mercenaries hired by Matic on the battlements. That, in turn, allowed Sunny, Effie, and Saint to advance up the slope and get close to the towering wooden gates of the castle. Sunny believed that Saint was the most powerful being in Mirage City at the moment. However, that did not make her immortal. According to his observations, she was currently at the level of power that Awakened possessed, and Awakened were still vulnerable to conventional weapons like guns. It was harder to kill them with bullets than mundane people, but not impossible. So, he could not in good conscience command Saint to storm the gates from the pier. Now, however, all that separated them from the gates was a few dozen meters of open ground. A deadly expanse for him and Effie, but not for Saint. Hearing his words, she took a deep breath and then nodded slowly. The bullets were hitting the construction machine they were hiding behind with loud metallic ringing. Making sure not to expose himself to a lucky shot, Sunny moved slightly, letting Saint get to the edge of the massive tracks. Effie glanced at her nervously, but did not say anything. Saint crouched low, supporting herself with one hand, and then looked in the direction of the gates. Sunny was suddenly nervous, too. Forcing out a smile, he asked in a tense tone, "Any last words?" Of course, Saint did not answer. Instead, she pushed herself off the ground, leaving the cover and shooting toward the gates of the castle with stunning speed. The bullets trailed behind her, sending small fountains of water shooting into the air from the puddles on the ground. The henchmen scurried, trying to hit the swift target. But their reaction was not swift enough. Saint breached the distance between the construction machine and the gates in a split second. Sunny expected her to scale the wall in a few swift leaps and descend upon the mercenaries in a cold, silent fury. But his wayward shadow had her own plans. Instead of trying to climb onto the battlefields, she simply lowered her shoulder and crashed into the great gates of the ancient castle like a siege ram. The ground shook, and the walls of the castle shuddered. A cloud of splinters shot in all directions like shrapnel, and the enormous wooden gate collapsed, shattered by the force of the impact. Saint disappeared into the haze, and Sunny just stared at the devastation caused by his quiet, elegant psychiatrist in shock. Well, that's one way to do it. A moment later, there was a thunderous roar of countless guns firing coming from the courtyard of the castle. The mercenaries had no time to worry about the stone steps anymore. Morgan. It's clear. Morgan and the other Mordred appeared from the curtain of rain just a few seconds later. Letting go of the sleeve of his tattered cloak, she evaluated the situation for a moment, then looked down and calmly pulled off her gloves. Are we going in? Sunny checked to see how many bullets he had left, and nodded. Of course. The other Mordred looked between them for a moment, then coughed. Lamb sorry, Detective Sunless, but is it wise? There seems to be a lot of guns firing inside. Sunny glanced at him, then shrugged. Well, no one has ever accused me of being wise. With that, he grinned. Plus, we can't miss all the fun, can we? Standing by his side, Effie nodded. You might be out of the loop, Mr. Mordred, but WE3 are not just some random people out there, in the real world. Shadow Boy, Morgan, and me, that's like half of the scariest people in the world. And two stunning beauties. Sunny gave her a sideways glance. Do I not count as a stunning radiance? Effie scoffed. He remained silent for a moment, preparing himself for the dash into the courtyard, and smiled. Strange. I distinctly remember you describing Master Sunless as, what was it? Let's go. Diving from behind the construction machine, Effie lunged forward. Sunny suppressed a laugh and followed, feeling the rain pelting him in the face and hearing the guns thundering "Aead." They reached the gateway in a few seconds and hid in its shadow, studying what was happening inside. If Sunny had to describe it in one word, it would be carnage. Just then, another lightning bolt struck, illuminating the world. In that stark light, he saw Saint advancing in an unpredictable pattern across the vast courtyard, moving with such speed that her figure seemed like a blur. She was pursuing the retreating mercenaries, cutting them down one after another with her swirling black blade. The battlements to their right were a chaotic mess of screams and gunshots. Sunny could not see what was happening there, only the streams of blood flowing down the wall. The battlements to their left, however, were a source of danger. The henchmen manning them were alive and well, unleashing a storm of bullets in Saint's direction. It was hard to imagine that they could track her movements so precisely despite her speed and the heavy rain, if not for one crucial detail. As Saint moved, killing one mercenary after another, wisps of white fog followed her like a ghostly mantle. By now, a furious whirlwind of mist was surrounding her, and missing it was all but impossible. Saint seemed to be growing faster, stronger, and more steadfast with each second. But just as Sunny evaluated the situation, a stray bullet hit her in the chest, throwing her petite body back. The bulletproof vest did its job, but her rhythm was broken, and she became exposed for a few crucial seconds. Left wall. Raising his revolver, Sunny opened fire. Effie did the same, while Morgan chillingly discharged her weapon into the back of a straggler mercenary who had gotten too close to them, and then turned around to run. Move. Covering Saint, they rushed left, toward the stairs leading to the battlements, and scaled them. Morgan held the other Mordred back at the top of the stairs while Effie and Sunny prepared to dive onto the wall and clash with the mercenaries defending it. Looking at Effie, Sunny grinned. Hey, she gripped her revolver tighter. What? Sunny inhaled deeply, and then said in an even tone. Don't get shot. They moved in unison, throwing open the door of the guard tower and gaining a clear shot of the battlements. The mercenaries were caught by surprise, so Sunny and Effie brought half a dozen down before the rest could react. The muzzle flashes and the thunderclaps of their shots were both blinding and deafening, making the sight of people being shot dead a little less gruesome. Their advantage did not last long, though. And when it disappeared, me and my goddamn tongue. Sunny immediately got shot.